Friday nights at the Green Palms Café always carried a certain rhythm, the low hiss of steaming milk, the dull hum of late-night traffic, and the steady clatter of cups behind the counter. The café sat on the edge of downtown Los Angeles, wedged between a pawn shop and a laundromat. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, the kind of place regulars claimed as their own. 19-year-old Hailey Reed was one of those faces you'd expect to see there, not as a customer, but behind the counter, wearing her faded apron and that polite half-smile that had earned her a small circle of loyal regulars. She was quiet, steady, the kind of girl who didn't make waves. Her manager said she was dependable. Her friend said she was too trusting. That Friday night, Hailey was running the closing shift alone. The manager had left early, claiming a headache, and her coworker had clocked out after the dinner rush. By 10:30 p.m., only a few customers lingered, a pair of students typing on laptops, a security guard sipping cold coffee, a delivery driver scrolling on his phone. Outside, the street was slick from a recent drizzle. Neon light from the liquor store across the road reflected off the wet pavement. Hailey checked her watch. She'd been up since 6 that morning, and all she wanted was to finish cleaning and go home. At 10:45, the last customer left. The bell above the door jingled softly, then silence filled the cafe. Hailey began her closing routine, wiping down tables, counting the register, flipping the chairs onto the tables one by one. On the security camera, she moved like clockwork, neat and efficient. At 11:02, she flipped the sign to closed. At 11:05, she was seen taking out the trash through the back door. At 11:07, she disappeared. The next morning, when the opening barista arrived at 6, the cafe looked untouched. The register drawer was balanced, the lights were off, and Hailey's purse still sat behind the counter. Her phone was plugged into the charger. Her car was parked behind the building, keys on the seat. By 9 a.m., Hailey's mother, Sandra Reed, had already called twice. "She didn't come home last night," she told the manager. "She always texts me when she's off." The police were called by noon. Detective Lasky was assigned to the case. He was a 20-year veteran, patient, gray at the temples, and long past believing every disappearance ended with a happy reunion. The first thing he noticed was what wasn't there: no signs of forced entry, no blood, no struggle. Just a quiet cafe and a missing girl. When the footage was pulled from the back alley camera, something caught his eye. At 11:03, a dark blue sedan rolled slowly down the narrow lane behind the cafe. It paused by the dumpster, headlights dimmed. A shadow moved near the passenger door. For seconds of static followed, and when the feed cleared, both Hailey and the car were gone. That was all it took. A single frame. A single moment lost to static. The news spread fast. Young cafe worker missing after closing time. Flyers went up across Los Angeles. Sandra Reed appeared on local TV, holding her daughter's photo. "Hailey's not the kind of girl who runs away," she said through tears. "Somebody took her." Within 2 days, the story had gone national. Social media swarmed with theories: abduction, trafficking, runaway, each one more twisted than the last. But the LAPD kept their focus on the evidence. The cafe's regulars were interviewed. Among them was Miguel Torres, 28, a part-time delivery driver who often stopped by after work. He said he barely knew Hailey, just coffee and small talk. But when his alibi didn't match the delivery logs, Lasky took another look. Miguel's car matched the description from the footage. A dark blue Toyota Camry. A search warrant turned up little, but one detail stood out: a car wash receipt dated the morning after Hailey vanished. When detectives obtained the surveillance video from that car wash, they saw the same blue Camry. The trunk was open. The driver wore sunglasses and gloves. Something long and heavy was wrapped in a tarp inside. Still, there was no body. Without one, the case stayed circumstantial. Weeks passed. The public moved on. But Sandra didn't. Every night, she left the porch light on. 3 weeks later, a cleanup crew near the Los Angeles River discovered a black plastic bag caught in the reeds. Inside were Hailey's cafe uniform and shoes, soaked in sludge. Her name tag was still pinned to her shirt. That broke the case open. When detectives re-examined Miguel's phone data, they found deleted GPS logs, coordinates leading straight to the riverbank. Confronted with the evidence, Miguel finally confessed. He said he'd followed Hailey for weeks, obsessed after she once smiled and remembered his name. He waited until closing time, approached her behind the cafe, and tried to talk. When she resisted, he panicked. "She hit me," he told the detective. "I didn't mean to, she just stopped moving." He had wrapped her body in a tarp, driven to the river, and dumped her there, believing she was dead. The coroner later determined she hadn't been. She drowned. Miguel Torres was sentenced to 35 years in prison for second-degree murder. The cafe reopened 6 months later under a new name, new owners, new staff. But every year on that same night, a single white rose appears by the back door, where Hailey was last seen alive. Detective Lasky sometimes drives by, coffee in hand, and watches the new baristas lock up. The alley's been repaved, the dumpster replaced, the camera upgraded. But every time he looks at the grainy photo of Hailey Reed on his desk, he remembers what he told a rookie once. In this city, people vanish fast. Sometimes it's the street, sometimes it's a person. But it always happens after closing time.